Boom. So here we are on Matt's Chats. And when you get the privilege to talk to someone from your favourite band, a founder member of your favourite band, is more than an honour. It's beyond a privilege. And that's what I'm going to do. I mean, he doesn't need much of an introduction, but I'm going to give him anyone. He is the king of badasses. He is the one and only Mr. Dave Evans of AC/DC. How are you?
I'm good. I'm working flat out, busier than I've ever been in my life, really. It's just amazing. I'm here in Buenos Aires at the moment in Argentina, and touring in South America and Mexico, and I'll be heading to Europe in July, I think. And I'm just so busy, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. There's just shows coming up and all sorts of things, and recordings, new records coming out, and so at the it's just mad. So it's pretty cool.
Isn't that great? You keep going. It's amazing. Now, for those of people who don't know, and I can't believe there are anyone. I mean, Dave started off in Sydney. He's actually Welsh. He was actually born in Carmarthen. Is that right?
That's right. Yep. Comedy and Bith. Exactly.
I grew up watching London Welsh. I was in Wales when Elvis died, funny enough. There you go.
Okay.
It wasn't my fault.
No.
Anyway, Dave started off. He moved down to Sydney from Townsville. You were in initially.
Yeah. We went from Carmarthen to Townsville in North Queensland. So we went to a place that was very, very hot. But it reminded me of South Wales, where I'm from. It was, there's a huge, almost a mountain. It's only a few feet from a mountain right there, towering over the city of Townsville, called Castle Hill. I've been to many castles in Wales as a boy, and it's overlooking the estuary there. Same as I used to go to Llanstefan in South Wales, with the castles there overlooking the Towie estuary there as well. So it was very much like where I used to play when I used to go from Carmarthen to Llanstefan. And this was in Queensland, Castle Hill. I used to climb right at the top of the damn thing and overlooking the bay. So it was very much like Wales. In fact, Cook, Lieutenant Cook actually, who discovered for Britain the east coast of Australia, called it New South Wales. Yeah, because because he had actually done a lot of training. He's English, but he did a lot of training in South Wales on the old ships, of course. And he knew all the beautiful beaches in South Wales, all the beautiful sandy beaches. So when he sailed up the east coast of Australia, which is a long way, it reminded him of South Wales. And he called the whole east coast of Australia at the time New South Wales.
John, I'm so pleased I asked that question. Now, I've been there. I got looked after amazingly out there. I mean, you come from a wonderful country. I was telling young Cassidy Paris, who's a young starlet from your country, how much I love your country, how I was taken as a friend, taken to go and see Hanging Rock outside Melbourne, and one of the most amazing experiences. And
I've been there. I've been all over Australia, of course. And
I bet, yeah.
As you know, it's a massive place. It's bigger than Europe. It's huge. It's a continent.
It is. But great people will come out there. So going back there, you start off there. You start off from bands as everyone does, starts off playing, and then you get to meet Malcolm Young.
Well, I actually met Angus first. I'd been with a band called Velvet Underground, the Australian Velvet Underground, as opposed to Lou Reed's Velvet Underground. And we broke up, we split up, and they joined a guy who was a big star, who they used to back. We used to back this guy, and he was a really nice guy. And he wanted to put a band together, so he said, "I'm going to steal the band." and they knew him before I joined the band. But when I was with the band Velvet Underground, they used to speak about a former guitarist who left prior to when I joined. They'd been around a few years, this band, a guy called Malcolm Young. And the younger brother of the famous George Young from the Easy Beats, Friday on My Mind and all that stuff, Of course, I used to buy all the records of the Easy Beats when I was a kid at school, in high school. Okay. But when we split up, I wanted to get a new band together, and I answered an advertisement in the newspaper, Sydney Morning Herald, And it was for a rock singer into the Rolling Stones and Free at the time, which we all loved. Free, Paul Rogers with Free, and Chuck Berry and that kind of thing. And so I answered the ad, and he said, "What's your name?" I said, "Dave Evans." He said, "Oh," he said, "that you're with Velvet Underground." I said, "Yeah." He said, "It's Malcolm Young." I went, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" So he'd heard of me, and he told me that he was jamming with a couple of guys and to get around there that afternoon in one of the inner suburbs of Sydney. So I said, "Yeah, that's great. Sounds really good." We knew we liked the same music because we'd been in the same band. So I went around that afternoon and met Malcolm for the first time, and Colin Burgess on drums, who was already famous. We'd been with the Masters Apprentices. They'd been to England. They'd recorded in England.
Yeah.
And a friend called Larry. But prior to that, ringing the ad, wasn't shortly after I split with the band. Well, I didn't split with the band went on to join Ted Murray and become the Ted Murray Gang. And there was a knock on my door. I lived in Bondi, South Bondi, right near the beach. There was a knock on my door one night, and here was this little guy, with a real little guy, long hair, really tiny, and another guy, tall guy, sort of big guy. And I said, "Yeah, you Dave Evans," the little guy said. I said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm Angus Young, George's younger brother." And Malcolm, I thought, wow, there's another Young. I didn't know about this one.
Yeah.
I know. So there's a few of them around. And he said, I said, "Come in." So he came in. He said, "Oh, look, I've got a band called Kentucky, but our singer left, and we wanted a singer to join. And we heard that you'd left, or the band split up, Velvet Underground. Would you join me? Join the band?" And so anyway, they played the music that they were into, which was American music. We were into the British bands. We were into Led Zeppelin and Free and Deep Purple. That's the bands that we were into. But Angus was into the American bands, mostly heavy music, so not much sort of lyrics and songs much, in my opinion. So I didn't really like the music at all. And it was all right, but I didn't like it. It wasn't what I wanted to sing. So I declined and said, "Thanks for the offer, but that's not really what I'm into. I'm into the other bands." So, okay, no worries. He left. Anyway, when I was with Malcolm and Colin and Larry, they said, "Yeah, is it cool? Dave joins." I went, "Yeah." And they said, "Do you want to join the band, Dave?" I said, "Yep, I'll join. It's great." We were jamming on Free and Rolling Stones and Chuck Berry. That's what we were into, So we're all into that music. So we formed a band and all went out that night and got drunk and all that sort of stuff, the normal thing that you do to sort of, But a couple of weeks later, Malcolm said, "Oh, my younger," I hadn't mentioned Angus to Malcolm at that stage. I didn't tell him that his brother had come around and all that. So I didn't mention it at all. Why bother? But then he said, "Oh, my younger brother, Angus, his band split up. I couldn't find a singer." I didn't say anything. I said, "Oh." And would it be okay if he came and auditioned for us? Because we were just going to go three-piece. A lot of bands were three-piece in those days. The Who, Led Zeppelin, Free, they were three-piece rock bands.
Yeah.
And we were happy to do that. But he said, "Oh, do you want another guitarist?" So we said, "Yeah, okay, sure." So then Angus came and auditioned for us, and we just jammed the same thing that we were doing. And he played along, and then Malcolm just said, "Oh, is it all right if Angus joins?" And we said, "Yeah, sure." So that's how the band formed into the five of us. And then we had to find a name, of course, which we did shortly after. So that's how the band came to be.
It's a great story. It's a fascinating story, and I can imagine playing some of those Sydney bars is quite tough. I mean, I think with my experience of playing bands in London is bad enough, but I can imagine playing some of those Sydney bars was a bit interesting back in the day.
Well, the ones in the city were good because we were city folk, right? Even though I was from the country originally.
Yeah.
But I was living in Sydney since I was like 16, 17. So it was cool. But out in the country, yeah, that was different. That's where the good old boys would be lining up like this, want to bash you up and all that stuff, because they're trying to protect the women. Got all these girls in town that they've been trying to have sex with for all their lives and missing out on, right? They thought these boys are going to walk into town, take them to bed and go back, and they've been chasing them for years. So they didn't like us at all, right? So we had to go out there and smash their brains out with the very first song. And that's how that's that tough sound of Australian rock. It's tough because we had to go out there and show we had no fear of these guys and just smash them. So at the end of the show, they loved us so much, they'd give us their girlfriends.
That's the way rock and roll should work.
That's right. And so that's how it was. That's why it's that tough look. But we learned a lot from the band Slade. Slade, Noddy and the boys, they came to Australia and blew our brains out. We already loved the music. We'd heard the music on the radio, Goodbye to Jane and all those great songs. And that tough sound of Noddy's voice, and it was just exciting and everybody could relate to it. And, of course, that came from the bars in England. That's the smaller bars, that sing-along stuff, the English style of sing-along in Wales too, where I'm from. Everybody sings, as you know, pub and we were together. And Noddy and the band really brought that pub rock, English pub rock or British pub rock, to the big stage. And we'd never seen that before. They came to Australia, and I saw them at the Sydney Showgrounds, which is packed, full of people, massive. And Noddy and the boys came up, and they slammed us. And it was a party, and it was great. And no prisoners. He took no prisoners. He kept stopping the song until everybody was clapping their hands. He stopped the song. He said, "There's somebody out there not clapping their hands. Everybody look around for him. Everybody find out who that person is that's not." And you had to clap because you thought the crowd was going to bash you up if you weren't clapping. And that's the pub rock thing. But he brought it to the big stage. And he had the massive crowd all doing what Noddy and the boys got them doing, and the other people in the pubs. We'd never seen that control before. We'd never seen that control of a massive crowd that he did. And that's
the mantra that we signed up to. I've been doing it a long time, and that's kind of it. And so, bring the pub rock, bring that stadium thing into a.
That's right. That's right. And when people say Australian rock's pub rock, well, yeah, it is pub rock. And we went out to all these tough towns with these big Aussie guys, and we hammered them. We hammered them Noddy Holder style.
Yeah.
Noddy Holder style. Yeah, we learned. But I'm telling the story because people say, "Oh, yeah, that AC/DC and all that, but it's pub rock." Yeah, it is. But I'm telling you where we got it from. We got it from Noddy and the boys. That's where we got it from. They changed the way we reacted in Australia. They were profound.
That's it's great to hear that. I mean, you carried on from there. You developed your sound. You had your first big hit with "Can I Sit Next to You, Girl?" and I think "Rocking in the Parlour" was on the B side, if I'm correct. Great songs.
Yeah, they still love them today all over the world. In fact, the first time I toured in Europe many years ago now, I did "Can I Sit Next to You, Girl?" Of course, that's a big hit. And but I didn't do "Rockin' in the Parlour." Don't worry about it. And from the very first show I was doing in Germany, they were yelling out, "Rockin' in the Parlour, Rockin' in the Parlour." What? Okay, I'll learn it next time. I didn't learn it. And the next show, they're yelling out, "Rockin' in the Parlour." I looked at the band. I had a German band with me. I said, "Guess what, boys? We're learning Rockin' in the Parlour." And I've done it ever since because people just really like that song.
No, so,
it's great.
It's a fantastic song. It's a great song. You had your own style, your own image, and the band was going really well. And then you were playing loads and loads of gigs, touring. And if I get this right, I'm careful how I word this. Your manager wasn't paying you the right amount of money.
That's right. Any amount of money. Really. Yeah. So, and that wasn't all. We were working our backsides off. We were on television, which was back in those days in the early 70s, was, gods if you're on television. There was only one 10-minute show. There was only one 10-minute show with rock bands in those days. It was a show called GTK, Get to Know. Yeah. And they had 10 minutes. It was right before a soapy called Bellbird, I think it was called. And it was 10 minutes, and they had like about 3, maybe 4 bands, if you're lucky, in that time. They had 3 bands.
Yeah.
So to get on that show, when there's millions of bands in Australia in those times, it was before video and before everybody, there's millions of bands. To get on that show, and it was almost impossible, but we got on there. with Can I Sit Next to You Girl? And we were all of a sudden all over Australia. It was the ABC, free to air. Everybody in Australia saw us straight away. And it was overnight success because people loved the song. And so it was an incredible situation. So yeah, and people still love that song today. I mean, they love it.
It's good you
in
say
fact,
that.
I'll tell you the story.
Yeah.
Malcolm Young, everyone knows who Malcolm is with AC/DC. And he's got a son, very nice boy too, Ross Young. And he's a good friend of mine. And he told me when I first met him, he said, Uncle Dave, he calls me Uncle Dave. He said, my favorite AC/DC song, you know what it is? I didn't know. So what is it, Ross? He says, Can I Sit Next to You Girl? I said, what? Really? Of all the AC/DC songs? He said, yeah, I love that song. He said, I was young when I saw it. He said, I loved it. And you know what? I said, what? He said, when I saw you singing that song, he said, I knew what I wanted to do. I said, what was that? He said, I wanted to become a rock singer. That's a true story. So even Malcolm's son, and so many more like him around the world, which is really amazing when you think about it. I'm not making it up. They come up to me and say, my favorite AC/DC song of all time is Can I Sit Next to You Girl? After all these years.
Isn't that mate? That's good. I mean, that's fantastic. It's a song I liked anyway. But I mean, now hearing the story,
it blew people out. But when we recorded that song, it was absolutely so new the way it was produced. It was like nothing else. And it was produced by George Young, the older brother of Malcolm and Angus, and Harry Vander from the Easy Beats. And we had a great engineer, Mal Brown, who went on to win awards too. Anyway, it's a fantastic production. We hadn't heard anything like it. All the digital delay and all this sort of stuff, which we'd never heard of before. In fact, one of the critics, which I've got the write-up, didn't believe that it was us who played on it. It was just, he said, it's just a young band like that. They didn't believe. He didn't say it wasn't us. He just said, it's just hard to believe. He said that such a young band could play. You would think they were session players, he said. But, of course, we all played on it naturally. And that's how good the record was. And it stands up today still.
It does. It does. I was playing. It's funny enough. I was playing it in the art of talking to you. I was listening again today. So you have all that going on. You have a fallout with the manager, and many different accounts of what actually happened. And you knocking him out with a punch. I don't know how that's true. I like to believe that's fine.
Well, it almost got. I got him down. Got up, and fucking grabbed him, and he went down. But it was pretty intense, but the boys jumped on top of it and pulled me off before anybody really got hurt. But I meant to do some damage.
Proper singer. And then Bond comes. I mean, the story is he was driving the band around. Is that true? Was that what he was always hanging around?
No, he was introduced to us by the guy who was booking us in South Australia. We had a hit record. It was number in the top 10. Vince Lovegrove. He booked the band in South. So we're doing an Australian tour, and Vince Lovegrove was a close friend of Bon Scott because he'd been in the Valentines with him, a band way back in the 60s. They were two singers. Vince was the main singer, and Bon was sort of like a backing singer, but he did sing a bit too. So they grew up together as young men in Fremantle, in Western Australia. And they had recorded a song called "My Old Man's a Groovy Old Man," which got some airplays in the 60s. I was still like 15 or 16 something. And it got some airplay. But it was written by the Easy Beats. And they were huge. The Easy Beats was everywhere. So it was an Easy Beats song. And it's sort of funny sort of song, And they recorded it, and they had got airplay with it. So they knew, obviously, George and the Easy Beats from that connection. So when we were in town with the two younger brothers from George, and we were being booked by Vince Lovegrove, who'd sung on the damn song, we're already on the hour every hour on the radio anyway. he rang Bon Scott and said, "Hey, would you like to meet AC/DC and the two young boys?" So he said, "Yeah, that'd be great." So he came over and met us, and he used to hang around with us through the connection of the song and the older brother. So if the boys wanted cigarettes or something, he'd drive them to the store and back, because we didn't have a car. We had a van that we were going. So he wasn't a chauffeur or anything like that. He was just a mate. So, if you drove me to the store and back, we're going to say you're my damn chauffeur.
Yeah.
You're not a chauffeur, you're a mate. So that was just a story that was made up for a bit of a joke. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I thought that was the case. But I mean, he comes on board, the rest is all history. I don't want to go on about that. Everyone knows that story. I'm more interested in you. You formed a band afterwards called Rabbit.
Yeah, well, it's funny again. When I split from the band, I'd had it. Right, I'd had it with music. I'd seen all the bullshit that the industry's full of, the rip-offs, the lies, the drugs, the nastiness, and that's the way it can be in any business, by the way, in any business. And I'd had it. I thought I want to be in a band, have fun like the Beatles, running around, and the Monkees. Hey, with the Monkees.
Yeah, I love the Monkees.
And I thought, hey, this is how it's going to be, And of course, it's nothing like that. It was terrible, especially with that combination of people. And I don't want to go into the personalities. I don't need to do that. So I just had it, and the manager and all that stuff. They owed me so much money for gigs that I'd done. We were doing 3 gigs a day at times. We were doing lunchtime, early evening, and late evening.
Wow.
Yeah, how can you sing?
You can't
doing that. And where's the money, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I said to them after my altercation with the manager, I left the band that night. I said, I've had it. Right, see you later. I've made my statement, and that's it. But the next morning we all sobered up, and we had shows to finish in South Australia, and we had to go to West Australia. It was number 5 in the charts. So we had to go in big shows to do and stuff. So we said, look, after the tour is over, we'll have a meeting. And I said, we must get, all of us, not just me, the other boys still complaining. I said to the manager, we have to get X amount per week, at least. Because I've got an apartment that I was renting in Sydney. I'm going to lose that. I can't pay the rent.
Yeah.
I got a car I was paying off. I said, I'm going to lose my car. And I'm working my ass off as well. Yeah?
Yeah.
So that's what I said. So I said, we all got to get X amount of dollars per week, all of us. Otherwise, I'm not leaving Sydney. I don't care how many hit records we got. It's just, that's a rip-off, man. So anyway, at the end of it, we had a meeting, and they'd had a talk together, and because I'm pretty feisty when I have to be. I'm a nice person.
The Welsh fire coming out.
That's it. You tell you what, boy. And so cop that, mate.
Oh, it's great. I think you're an absolute superstar. I love it. I've followed you for a while. I've listened to Rabbit, too much rock and roll. I love the way you publicise yourselves. And now you're out in Argentina. And what's that? Tell me about that. How that happened?
Well, I ended up all over the world, honestly. Last year I was mostly in Argentina, but I was going to the South American countries and back. Right, I'm just based here, Mexico and all that, because there's so much work here. I mean, Latin America is where it's at, guys. I'm telling you, the people here, they love you, and they rock, man. They rock like no. Argentina rocks like no other country in the world.
Well, I've seen the River Plate, the AC/DC one. There,
everywhere. Yeah, that's just one gig I did. I'd go all over Argentina. Every town you go to, every single town, they rock, men and girls. It's full. It's fantastic. But so is all of South America. It's all fantastic. But the year before last, I lived in Mexico. I was based in Mexico all year. I love Mexico. They rock too. So from Mexico, it's more central. I could go to the USA, back to Mexico, Guatemala, and back to Mexico. So that was really fantastic. So I lived in Mexico. It was fantastic. before that, I actually lived in England for quite a while. I was living in Wallasey near Liverpool.
No.
And it's a beautiful place, Wallasey. If you've never been there, it's really fantastic. And it's sort of country. It's right next to the Mersey. The Mersey's there. There's Liverpool, across the Mersey, very across the Mersey, and you've got Wallasey right there. And I was staying there with friends there and doing some shows in England, but also going across to Europe. I was doing the big festivals in Europe, and then when I had time off, I'd come back to stay with my friends in Wallasey, and then off to Wales, of course, because Wallasey's right next to Wales, and so I was back in home too. So it depends where. And before that, I lived in Texas for 10 years, in a place called Gun Barrel City.
Gun Barrel City.
Yeah,
all right.
And that was right near Dallas.
So your legacy follows you around. I mean, people must stop you all the time. And do you ever get sick of talking about it? Do you ever get tired of talking about it?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. But look, it's professionally. That's what I do. That's what I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I'm out and someone goes, "What's Angus like?" I say, "I'll tell you what, mate."
We don't care. We're all about Dave Evans. We know the founding member of AC/DC.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, look, I don't just stop, mate. Or what was it like when you were in AC/DC? Tell you what, pal, it was more like this. That's what it was like. Get it? Okay.
Are you working on any new stuff at the moment? You working on any new songs? Or?
Yeah, I got. Funnily enough, Rabbit, the last record we released was 1977. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, we've got a new record coming out this year. A brand new Rabbit record. Yeah.
Exclusive.
Yep. Incredible. And so it's been recorded. It's mixed, and the record label is going to release it shortly. They're doing a film clip right now for the film clip for the song, and it's going to be released. Could be next month or whatever. So I'm now officially still the singer of Rabbit.
Wow.
Because Rabbit is now a viable band. So I'm not the ex-singer for Rabbit anymore. I'm still the singer for Rabbit.
You're a singer of Rabbit. There you go.
Yeah, singer of Rabbit. So that's great. So it's a new record for Rabbit that's coming out. And I've got other songs.
You're going to come to England? You come and play? Come play over here?
Well, I've played in England quite a few times. I was living in where was it? Just outside of Manchester. I can't remember the little town now. I was staying in a pub there, and upstairs in the pub. It was great. And I toured quite a few shows in England and Wales too. I've toured throughout Wales. Even did a show in Carmarthen.
Homeboy.
One of my cousins knew I was touring England and in Wales, and just said, "Oh, can you do a show here?" I said, "I'd love to do a show in Carmarthen." He said, "Well, I can't pay you that much, sort of thing for the band, not just me." But I said, "Okay, I'll speak to the tour organizer," and they did a deal. And it's a small place, But yeah, so I did a show in Carmarthen with the band, and my cousin and other cousins were there as well. So that was pretty special, of course. But so I've done shows in England. I didn't get to Scotland because the Scots wouldn't pay me enough. I go, what about half price? What about half price? I'm going, no half price. I'm doing it for not much as it is, guys.
Oh, brilliant.
So I know I've got fans in Scotland, so I'm not putting the Scots down. No. But yeah, they wouldn't pay. But it's all right. The Irish wouldn't either.
I think there's a pattern forming here.
So I didn't go there. So I went to Wales and England. And then off.
Listen, Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for spending time to talk to Matt's Chats today, to give me an insight into it. I think you're a larger than life character. I think you're brilliant. There's 50 years. You are the king of badasses. You never know. AC/DC are doing a final tour. They may ask you to come back and do one now. Call you up on stage to do that.
Well, how much? How much? they owe me some money from the last time. Remember?
All right.
I've still owed money from those gigs. So how much?
There's a message out there, okay? Dave's put it out there. If you want to get him on stage to sing, "Can I sit next to you, girl?" You know what you got to do. Listen.
But yes, so this year's the 50-year anniversary of AC/DC. I'm doing a special show, the 50-year anniversary show this year, as well as the Icons of Classic Rock show. I'm doing that as well with all the great singers. Some huge brilliant production that we're doing with the massive venues all over the world. But I'm also doing my own shows, the 50-year celebration show, and I'm doing songs from the very first show AC/DC ever did.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
And so no one's doing what I'm doing. I'm taking people on a trip back down memory lane. We're doing songs like Lucille by Little Richard, Tutti Frutti, that's what we were doing, Babe Please Don't Go, and Honky Tonk Women, Chuck Berry. We're doing all those songs that we started with, right? And a couple of songs like that I wrote, an original song that I did the very first night called Sunset Strip. I wrote it the night we played because we didn't have enough songs.
Show business.
So they called it, he rewrote it. We wrote it to show business. But I resurrected it and went back to the original song.
Good.
Sunset Strip.
Good.
And I recorded it as well, so it's on record. So I'm doing the 50-year anniversary because I was there. Right, Bon Scott wasn't there 50 years ago. Brian Johnson wasn't there 50 years ago.
No.
So it's a special show, and people love it because it's not just a show. This is a show that they will never see again, and songs sung by the original singer. They'll never hear me sing these songs again either.
Oh.
So it's really wonderful. The people are all happy. They're so happy, and I'm happy too. So come along from near you out there. The 50-year AC/DC anniversary celebration, badass show.
The badass, the king of badasses. That's brilliant, Dave. Real pleasure meeting you and having a chat.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
Hey, you all the best, okay? And
I hope I see you
when it comes out.
When I get to England, which I will get back. Don't worry. I hope to meet you, of course.
We'll do. We'll have a proper couple of beers.
Rockin'.
God bless. Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.